Hi there, I'm Sherry Stock and I am one of the directors of Camp Kodiak. And during the year I am a special education teacher in Ontario. Today we're going to be talking about behavior. And we know that behavior doesn't happen in a vacuum. There's always some sort of a context for behavior happening. And what we want to do as parents or educators, as caring adults, we want to understand what the context is so we can understand the behavior. And there's a model that many people use called the ABCs, the Antecedent Behavior Consequence Model. Now, in a previous video, I talked about the antecedents of behavior, all the things that might happen before a behavior that could contribute to the behavior. Today, I'm going to be talking about the behavior and the consequences. If you haven't yet seen the antecedents video, I recommend you pause this one right now, go back and watch the antecedents video because it will really give you a framework for understanding what I'm going to be talking about today.
I know they're up ahead just around the bend. Tomorrow is sweet cause we're all gonna meet at Kodiak.
Okay, first we're going to talk about the B, the behavior. And as I've mentioned before, behavior is a value-neutral term. It's just describing something that somebody does that is observable, and it's neither positive nor negative. For the purpose of our ABC chart, we are trying to be as descriptive of the behavior that we observe as possible. Now, we know that behavior is communication, and if we don't adequately describe what behavior we're observing, we may not be picking up on the communication that the child is trying to send us. So, for example, I have a friend who cleans when she's upset. It is not the case that every time she makes her bed or does the dishes that she's upset. Sometimes she just needs to make her bed and do the dishes. But it is the case that if she is moving frenetically around her apartment, if she's picking up piles of things, refolding them and putting them in a different pile, if she seems to be driven by a motor, I know that's her mad cleaning. And I know that I need to sit quietly and wait till she's done. And then I need to softly ask her what's going on. If I didn't describe, or if I wasn't in tune to all of the, intricacies of what her cleaning, her mad cleaning looks like, I may miss it. The same thing goes for, parents who are trying to figure out how to solve their kids fighting. Siblings fight all the time. But if all you're recording in the ABC chart is that they're fighting, it may not be descriptive enough to really explain to you what your kids are trying to communicate. So are they giving each other the silent treatment? Is one of them crying? Or, are they coming to blows on your front lawn? Those are all very different kinds of fighting, and they're probably communicating different things and a reaction to different kinds of stressors. So when you're recording the behavior in your ABC chart, what you want to do is describe in as much detail as possible the behavior that you're observing. So you can try to take as many clues as possible to understand what your child is communicating. So the next thing we need to talk about is the C, the consequences. And I need to be clear, consequences are not the punishments that you may be imposing on a child for certain behaviors. A consequence is anything that happens after the behavior. And it can be a natural consequence, like if a child throws something at a wall, the consequence could be that the item is broken. Or it could be how an adult reacts, how a peer reacts. All of those things can be consequences. And there are 5 basic categories of the consequences that often happen after a behavior. I'm a teacher. I really like acronyms. So to help me remember those 5 categories of consequences, I've come up with the acronym AVAST. A-V-A-S-T. Now the first A in AVAST is for avoidance. Sometimes kids will do something in order to avoid, and you need to decide why they are avoiding. So there are 2 real reasons that kids would avoid something. The first reason is they just don't enjoy doing it. And the second reason is that the demands of the task are too difficult. And those 2 reasons need to have different responses from the adult. So for example, if you have a child who dawdles and dawdles and dawdles in the morning, and eventually you just need to get him off to school, it may be that he's avoiding having to make his bed in the morning. Not necessarily because making his bed is too difficult, but because making his bed is unpleasant and he'd rather not do it. So that would be avoiding an unpleasant task. If, however, you've got a child who's a very unsure reader, and he knows that in geography class, his teacher is going to make him read a paragraph out of the textbook out loud, what he might do is get in trouble and get sent to the office. And in his mind, getting sent to the office and whatever happens in the office is better than having to read out loud. So that behavior is in a way of avoiding a task that is just too difficult or too anxiety-producing for him. If the demands of the task are too difficult, you need to lessen the demands. Make it something that your child can be successful at, can feel confident about. You need to give that child a win. If it's just that they want to avoid something that they don't like, you may need to change your schedule around so that unpleasant thing happens anyway. So for example, at camp, the first thing kids do in the morning is they get up, they get dressed and ready for the day, and they clean the cabin. And after bunk cleaning, it's time for breakfast. Now, we can't give the kids unlimited time to clean the cabin because eventually they have to get to breakfast, they have to get on with their day. But what we do say to the kids is, look, if you haven't cleaned your cabin well enough by breakfast, we're going to come back at free play and try again. Because it's simply unhealthy to live in a dirty, messy cabin. We need to have a clean place to live. We need to be able to feel comfortable in our home at camp. And that needs to happen. But we can't miss breakfast for it to happen. So if we need to come back and clean our cabin, that's going to happen during free time. Okay, now we're moving on to the V. And the V stands for venting. And venting is something that we all need to do sometimes. But we need to make sure that the way your child is venting is socially appropriate. So if it is, then there may not be any need to change that behavior at all. But if it is hurtful to them, to other people, if it's extremely disruptive, then you may need to find a way to help them choose a substitute for venting. So maybe instead of running away, they can have a set jogging path that they take. Maybe they write in a journal. Maybe they listen to loud music. Maybe they, punch a punching bag. Something that still allows them to get that need met in a way that is not hurtful or disruptive. The A stands for attention. And as I've mentioned before, if kids can't get attention in positive ways, they'll find negative ways to seek out that attention. So what you need to do as a caring adult is find lots and lots of positive ways to give that child attention. Because the need for attention is real. And it's inappropriate to ignore a child who needs attention. You need to try to find ways to give them attention for positive things that they do. And sometimes you really need to manufacture those ways, and you need to schedule them. And you may need to schedule the positive attention right before a time that you suspect they might have trouble seeking out negative attention. The S stands for soothing. So some behaviors are soothing to kids. And again, if that soothing behavior is not disruptive, not hurtful, then it's okay to let them continue it. Lots of kids on the autism spectrum, for example, they flap or they make repetitive noise, they have different stimming behaviors, and they're soothing and they're really not harming anybody. And there's no need to change that behavior at all. But if the soothing behavior is something that is harmful, like banging your head or flopping to the ground in the middle of the street, then those are behaviors that need to be substituted. And maybe some sort of a sensory object would help, maybe a stuffy, maybe a snack, maybe a quiet space, maybe music, maybe lack of music. We need to find something to meet that need for soothing in a way that will be healthy and helpful. Now, one thing that many people don't realize is that many children with ADHD find arguing soothing. And many adults who work with children with ADHD do not find arguing soothing. So I had a student in my class a number of years ago who argued about absolutely everything. And the things that he argued about, some of them were important, some of them were not important, some of them had to do with him, some of them had nothing to do with him. And one day I sat him down and I said, what's with all the arguing? And he said, I just really like it. And we made a deal. We said that during homeroom every day, he would be in charge of organizing a debate in our class. And he would come in with a debate topic. I would approve it, but he would come in with a debate topic. He would choose the teams. He would moderate the debate. And we would argue for 10 minutes every morning about the topic of his choosing. And you know what? It satisfied his need for arguing. And we stopped arguing about whether he needed a pen or a pencil, whether his shirt was blue or blue-green, whether all of these things that were disrupting my lesson, annoying his classmates, all of those behaviors stopped because I recognized that arguing was important to him, and I gave him a structured time to do it within the context of the class. The last one, T, is for tangible. Sometimes kids will display certain behaviors because they really want a specific thing. And if that thing is appropriate, if as a parent or a teacher you've decided that that child can have that thing, then try to arrange a way for them to get that tangible when they are behaving slightly better. So as long as it's not overly expensive, as long as it is not inappropriate for their age group, you can say to a child, I can't go out for ice cream with you right now, but if you can do this thing, whatever it is, some very small requirement of them that you're pretty sure they can be successful at. If you can do this thing for a very short amount of time, then we can go out for ice cream. And now you're making a connection between the positive behavior and the tangible that they're getting, instead of maybe the tantrum that they've thrown and the tangible. So that's one way to approach tangibles. Sometimes, though, what they really, really want is a non-starter. And this happens at camp a lot. The thing that most of our teenagers want is their cell phone. And it's just absolutely a non-starter. We don't allow any kids to have their cell phones at camp. So what we need to do at that point is figure out why it is that having a cell phone is so important to them. So for some kids, it's because they want to be able to communicate with their parents. So we say, okay, I understand. That's a really important goal. And if you want to communicate with your parents, you can write them a letter. I will scan it and I will email it to your parents right away. They will have it within seconds, but you can't phone them. Or you can give me a message and I will phone your parents and then let you know what they say. In some cases, their phone is where they keep all their music, and their music is really soothing, and maybe it helps them sleep or relax during the day. And so we'll say to them, look, we understand that as well. So as a camp, we have bought some, MP3 players, and we've preloaded them with music. What kind of music do you like? Here's one that matches your tastes, and you can borrow this camp MP3 player. But you still can't have your cell phone. So what we do is we try to figure out what it is about that tangible that is so important, and we try to meet that need without giving in on the thing that we have decided they absolutely can't have. So to summarize, looking at the ABCs of behavior, the antecedents, behavior, and consequences, is a way of understanding what a child is trying to communicate through their behavior. And in some cases, we are able to adjust the environment to make accommodations, to change the expectations in order to help a child be successful. And in some cases, we have to teach the child coping strategies in order to be able to manage in the situations that they find themselves. Either way, our goal is always to understand what they're trying to tell us and to make sure that their needs are met. Thanks very much. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Bye-bye.